Growing up, there was always one rule in our house that was never questioned. Your college fund is sacred, untouchable. It was something my dad said like gospel. Every time I got a good grade, he'd pat me on the head and say, "Keep it up, Kayla. That fund's got your name on it." I believed him. Even when the lights flickered from unpaid bills. Even when Mom's emergency shopping trips meant new shoes for my cousin, but not for me. That college fund was my North Star. I had dreams. Big ones. NYU, double major in journalism and environmental science. I wanted to tell stories that mattered. Travel. Do something that didn't involve folding towels at my aunt's salon for $9 an hour. And every time I talked about it, my dad would nod with pride. "You're gonna do big things, Kayla. Real big things." I held on to that like a life raft until the storm hit. Senior year, I applied to 6 schools. Got into 5. NYU was one of them. I ran home with the letter, holding it like gold. Mom barely looked up from her tablet. Dad blinked and said, Wow, that's expensive though." I frowned. "We talked about this since I was in kindergarten." "The fund?" He looked away. "We'll talk about it later." Later turned into silence. Then came the delays. "I'm working on the financials. We've got to make sure the taxes are right. Your cousin needs braces. But don't worry, we're still good." Meanwhile, the tuition deadline loomed like a shadow. I emailed the NYU office to confirm the payment was in process. They wrote back, "We have not received any payment or financial aid release for your account." I sat there staring at the screen like someone had punched the breath out of me. I confronted my dad that night. "What happened to the fund?" He didn't even flinch. "It's complicated, Kayla. Your mom and I needed to shift some things around for the family. Life isn't cheap." I stood there, trembling. "You told me it was sacred." It was. But the family needed help. You'll understand one day. The next morning, I saw it. A brand new white and navy blue boat, parked in our uncle's driveway. Dad and Uncle Troy were taking selfies in front of it, grinning like idiots. "Kayla," Dad called. "Isn't she beautiful? She's called the family float. You'll love it." The blood in my ears roared. "You bought a boat?" Uncle Troy laughed. "Your dad paid in full, girl. Treating himself for once. About time." Paid in full. With what? I walked back to my room and shut the door. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. But something inside me cracked clean in half. Because it wasn't just the money. It was the lie. The years of sacred promises. The pat on the head encouragement. The dreams they dangled like a carrot just to yank away. That night, I sat on my floor and reread every NYU email. I opened a spreadsheet, calculated what was missing, looked up the average price of that exact model boat. The numbers matched, almost to the dollar. 2 weeks later, my parents asked me to come help clean the boat. Bonding time, my dad called it. My mom handed me a bucket and gloves like nothing had happened, like I was just their helpful little girl again. I took the gloves, smiled, and said, "Sure," because they had no idea what I had already found in the paperwork. They registered the boat under my name, mine. I'll never forget the way my dad beamed as he watched me carry the soap bucket to the dock. He acted like everything was fine, like I hadn't been denied my future so he could buy a floating man cave. "Start with the deck," he said, handing me a long-handled scrubber. "It's real teakwood. Needs love." "Sure thing," I said, voice syrupy sweet. What I didn't say, "You're scrubbing away my NYU dorm room. One soap bubble at a time." They laughed on the dock that day. My mom sat in a folding chair with sunglasses on, scrolling her phone. My Uncle Troy passed around beers. "Good kid," Troy said, nodding toward me. "Does what she's told." "She's always been responsible," Dad said proudly. "We put the boat in her name for tax purposes. Plus, if anything happens, she's legally the one on record. Keeps it clean." I paused. They had no idea they'd handed me the keys to their pride and joy. Legally. That night, I sat at my laptop, scrubbing something else. Not teakwood, Listings. I created a new email address, opened a private account on a boating sale forum, uploaded crisp, clean photos I took while cleaning, listed it as lightly used, nearly new 22 cruiser, registered to seller, no liens, motivated to sell, fast close welcome. And I waited. Within 3 days, I had 3 serious offers. The highest was from a man in his 40s, from Tampa. He'd been saving for a family boat, said his wife wanted one before summer ended. He asked about the paperwork. I sent him a copy of the registration. He replied, "Everything's in your name. You're the legal owner?" Yes. While I prepped the sale, I acted normal. I did dishes, cleaned my room, helped Mom reorganize the pantry like we weren't living in Betrayal. Sometimes I caught her looking at me like she knew I was too quiet. But she never said anything. Because people like her think silence means submission. They don't understand it can also mean strategy. The buyer came on a Sunday afternoon. Dad was out fishing with Troy. Mom was at the grocery store. I met the man, Marcus, at the dock with a manila envelope in hand. He brought a cashier's check and 2 copies of the bill of sale. I had already transferred the boat's title to my name digitally, just to ensure clean ownership. We signed everything on the back of his pickup. He smiled. "Pleasure doing business with you, Kayla." I handed him the keys and watched him drive away with their boat. No guilt, no second thought, just wind and closure. That evening, Dad came in whistling. "Ready to take the family float out next weekend?" he asked. I looked up from my laptop. "Oh, it's gone," I said. He laughed. "What?" "The boat," I said calmly. "I sold it." His face dropped. "You did what?" "I sold it. Legally. It's in my name. Remember?" His jaw tightened. "Kayla, that's not funny." "Not joking." He lunged toward me. "You can't do that." "But I did," I said. "I got a great deal too." "Oh, and the payment already cleared. I'm using it for college." His face turned red. Mom walked in just then, plastic bags rustling. "What's going on?" "She sold the damn boat," Dad snapped. Mom blinked. "You what?" I stood up. "Let me guess. Now it's suddenly my college fund again?" Dad sputtered. "We did what we had to do for the family." I nodded slowly. "Right. And now I've done what I have to do for me." Mom opened her mouth, closed it again. Dad looked like he wanted to explode, but didn't know what button to push. Because deep down, they both knew. They handed me the weapon. I just had the nerve to use it. The next week, I used the money to pay NYU directly. In full. I didn't ask. I didn't beg. I didn't even tell them. They found out the day a thick envelope arrived in the mail with my student ID, housing assignment, and class schedule. Mom held it like it was radioactive. Dad didn't speak to me for 2 days. I didn't care, because for the first time in my life, I wasn't just someone they invested in. I was my own investment. A few days later, my aunt, Dad's sister, called me in secret. "I heard what you did," she said. I braced myself, but then she said softly, "I wish I had your courage when I was your age. Took me 20 years to stop letting your dad decide who I was allowed to be, and just like that, I knew I hadn't just done this for me." The morning I left for New York, nobody said goodbye. Not my dad, not my mom, not even my little brother, who used to beg me to play video games with him. The house felt cold, like silence had soaked into the walls. And yet, I felt free. Because for once, I wasn't waiting for their permission to live my life. My Aunt Karen, the one who called after I sold the boat, was the only person who helped me pack. She brought a thermos of coffee, a bag of snacks, and a warm hug that didn't ask for anything in return. "You'll need this more than you think," she said, handing me a small envelope. Inside was a prepaid Metro card and a $100 cash. I never used my voice back then. "But you're using yours now. Keep going." I held her hand tighter than I meant to. She didn't let go. When I arrived at NYU, the city felt electric, big, loud, alive, everything my old house wasn't. My dorm room was small, but it was mine. The sheets weren't expensive, the walls were bare, and my only decor was a photo of my high school self taped beside my laptop. But I stood in the center of that little room and whispered, "You made it?" And I cried. Quietly. Not from sadness, but from relief. Orientation week was a blur of new faces and information. Everyone seemed to already know how to talk to professors, how to find free food, how to network. I didn't. I had to learn how to navigate financial aid systems, meal plans, and waitlist without a parent in sight. Most students called home when things got tough. I didn't even think about it, because home wasn't where I came from anymore. It was where I was going. The first time I stepped into my journalism class, the professor asked us to introduce ourselves and share what brought us here. People said things like, "I've been writing since I was 8," or "My mom's a journalist, so I've always loved media." When it was my turn, I stood up and said, "My name is Kayla. I'm here because someone tried to buy my silence, and I chose not to stay quiet." The class went still. Then someone clapped. Then another. Then the whole room joined in. That moment stayed with me. It reminded me I wasn't just here to learn, I was here to rewrite my story. So I started documenting everything. My first subway ride. My first real byline in the school paper. The first time I saw a classmate of color break down because someone questioned their place in the program. I started writing about those moments, not as diary entries, but as truths the world needed to hear. One piece, titled "The Cost of a Dream," what I paid to be seen, got shared hundreds of times. People messaged me, "This is my story too. My parents took my fund for my brother's tuition. Thank you for saying what I never could." That's when I realized my revenge didn't end with the boat sale. It was just the beginning. Back home, I knew things were shifting. My mom started posting vague quotes on Facebook. "Some kids don't appreciate sacrifice. Family means forgiveness, not payback." I ignored them because guilt only works on people who owe you something. And I didn't owe them anything anymore. Mid-semester, Uncle Troy tried calling me. 3 missed calls in 2 days. I didn't pick up, but then he sent a text. "Hey, your dad's still mad, but your mom's been crying. Boat or not, come visit." I stared at that message for a long time, and then I deleted it, because I wasn't a band-aid for their broken pride. I wasn't going back just to make them feel better about stealing my future and calling it family priority. One night I walked past a marina in Manhattan. Dozens of boats lined the dock, some fancy, some modest, all floating like symbols of freedom or power. And I smiled, because I had already sailed. Not on water, but on courage. I wasn't trying to hurt them anymore. I just wanted them to live in the silence they gave me, to sit with the consequences they once thought they'd never have to face. Because the truth is, they sold my trust, and I sold the boat. Fair trade. Thanksgiving was approaching. At NYU, everyone buzzed about plans. Flying home, grandma's stuffing, ski trips in Vermont. I told people I was staying on campus to catch up on work. That wasn't a lie, but it wasn't the full truth either. The truth was, I couldn't imagine sitting at a table with people who'd stolen my future and called it love. People who smiled while eating turkey they bought with the money meant for my education. The Wednesday before Thanksgiving, my mom called. I didn't answer. Then a text came through. "We're not mad anymore. We just want to talk. Come home." Not mad anymore. Like I had been the problem all along. Like my silence had created the distance, not their choices. I didn't go home, but I did do something else. I finished my second personal essay for the NYU paper. This one was called "How I Bought My Future Back with Their Boat." It didn't name names, didn't include locations, but the story? Unmistakably mine. I detailed everything, from the years of the college fund as sacred, to the boat, to the moment I saw my name on the registration paperwork and realized they handed me the very thing they used to betray me. And I sold it. Not to punish them, but to free myself. The piece went viral on campus. Students I didn't even know stopped me in the dining hall. "You're the boat girl," one of them whispered. smiling. Another said, I sent your article to my mom. She finally admitted they spent my savings on my brother's wedding. Dozens of messages poured in from strangers, from kids like me, from people who'd been robbed of their dreams by people who claimed to love them. Then something happened I didn't expect. The article reached home. I got a call from my Aunt Karen that night. Her voice was tense. Kayla, your mom read the piece. She's furious. I sighed. I didn't even use her name. She doesn't care, Karen said. She says you embarrassed the family. I almost laughed. No, I said, they embarrassed me. For years. I just stopped letting them do it in private. The next morning, my mom sent a message. So you write about us now. Is that what this is? I didn't reply. She followed up with you owe your father an apology. For what? I finally texted back. For humiliating him. I didn't humiliate him. He did that himself when he stole my college fund. No response. Not that day. Not the next. Meanwhile, NYU's journalism department nominated my piece for a Student Excellence Award. My professor said, this isn't just good writing. This is what storytelling is supposed to do. It makes people see themselves and rethink everything. I stood in his office, still holding the printed copy of the article, and I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Pride. Not forced, performative pride like my parents used to show off at church, but quiet, earned pride. The kind that comes when you fight to be heard, and finally are. Around the holidays, my cousin Danny messaged me privately. She lived with us for 2 years after her mom got sick. Back then I shared everything with her. Snacks, clothes, even my closet. She wrote, I just read your article. I had no idea they used your fund. I'm sorry. I stared at the message for a long time, because even though Danny had nothing to do with the boat, or the lies, or the decisions, she apologized. Something my parents still hadn't done. One night, I called Karen again. I keep wondering. I said, why didn't they just tell me? Why lie about the money? Her voice was gentle, because they knew what they were doing was wrong, and they didn't want to feel guilty. So instead of owning it, they buried it. And blamed me when I dug it up? Exactly. Christmas came. Still no apology. Just another group text from Mom, dinner at 5 if you're coming. I replied with one word, busy. I spent Christmas Eve writing a draft of my next piece. This one about emotional manipulation and what family loyalty really means. My roommate, who was also staying behind, read it aloud and said, Kayla, this is your power. And she was right. Power isn't loud. It's not always revenge with fireworks. Sometimes it's being the one who walks away and doesn't look back. Sometimes it's choosing silence not because you're scared, but because you're done. Done explaining. Done excusing. Done shrinking. And that winter, as snow covered the sidewalks of Manhattan, I made a decision. I wasn't going back. Not just physically. I was done carrying their shame like it was mine. I was done cleaning up after their messes, boat or otherwise, because they taught me how to scrub down. But they never imagined I'd use those hands to wash them out of my future. Spring semester arrived with cold wind and warmer nerves. Classes picked up fast, and so did emails about interviews, panel invitations, and podcasts, asking to feature me. Apparently, the girl who sold the family boat to pay for college was the kind of story that struck a nerve, and not just in students. One message stood out. We're producing a documentary series on young adults reclaiming their stolen future. Would you be willing to share your story on film? I stared at the screen. Me? On camera? Every instinct screamed to say no. But something deeper whispered, this is yours now. Own it. I said yes. The shoot was scheduled for mid-March. When the crew arrived, they asked if I had any family photos for context. I paused, thought about pulling out the old scrapbook in my dorm trunk. Instead, I handed them a photo of my NYU acceptance letter and a boat listing I had posted. This is the only proof I need, I said. This is the before and after. The documentary team was stunned by the simplicity of it. You were legally the owner? I nodded. They put it in my name to dodge taxes. That's how little they thought of me, that I was just a name on a paper. And now, The director asked. Now, I said, that name means something. Back home, the fallout had started to spread. Uncle Troy's friend group, the ones he loved bragging to, had found the article and the documentary trailer. Word was, they stopped inviting him to lake weekends. The man who once grinned with sunglasses and a beer on the boat deck, now he was stuck explaining why his niece was famous for selling the very boat he loved. My cousin said Dad started telling people I twisted the story. He couldn't admit what he did, so he rewrote it in his head. But facts don't care about family pride, and neither did the public record. One morning, I got a message from a girl in Texas. She wrote, I was scared to speak up when my parents gave my scholarship to my brother. But your story gave me the courage to call the school and ask for a review. They re-awarded me the A. You changed my life. I cried reading that one, because I realized this wasn't about a boat anymore. It was about voice, about choosing truth over quiet, and helping others do the same. Then I got the call I knew would come eventually. My dad, I stared at the name on the screen, didn't answer the first time, or the second. But the third time, I picked up. Kayla, just my name, no apology, no emotion. I stayed silent. I want you to stop. Take down the article. Pull out of that film. You've made your point. I let that hang in the air. Then I said, I haven't even started. He went quiet. Then he said, people are talking. Your aunt said she saw you on YouTube. Your cousins think we're monsters. I laughed. A dry, bitter kind of laugh. You stole from your child and spent it on a luxury toy, and you're upset about reputation? It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that. You're still my daughter, he said. No, I replied. I'm the woman you underestimated, and I'm not done speaking. That night, I recorded a podcast episode with a small Black creators group. The host asked, what would you say to the people who call you ungrateful? I paused, then said clearly, I'm not ungrateful, I'm unsilenced. Gratitude doesn't mean accepting betrayal. It means knowing your worth and walking away when others don't. The episode trended for days. Someone even printed my quote on a shirt, I'm not ungrateful, I'm unsilenced. It felt surreal, but also right. Like the girl who once begged for college applications and cried over tuition emails, had finally found her place in the world, and it didn't come from family. It came from me. I got invited to a conference that April, keynote panel, student speak. I stood behind the podium, heart racing, as I looked out over the sea of faces, all waiting, all listening, and I told them the story, the college fund, the betrayal, the boat, the silent scrubbing, the say, and then I told them the truth. Sometimes the people who raised you also taught you how to shrink, but the moment you take back your voice, even once, you never fit in that small space again. Afterward, a girl ran up to me, breathless. Kayla, I just want you to know, you're not just a story, you're a mirror. You made me see myself. I hugged her, because that's all I ever wanted. Not revenge, not applause, just to be seen. And in being seen, let others see themselves too. I used to think forgiveness meant going back, sitting across the dinner table like nothing happened, laughing at inside jokes, pretending the wound didn't still throb beneath the smile. But NYU taught me something else. Forgiveness is distance. It's freedom. It's peace without performance. I hadn't spoken to my parents in months, not since the last phone call where my dad tried to guilt me into silence, not since my mom's Facebook quote streak about disrespectful children and public shame. And still, I didn't feel empty. I felt lighter. Because silence, the one I chose, was power. And the silence they now lived in, that was consequence. In May, the full documentary aired online. I watched it alone in my dorm room with a blanket over my knees and trembling fingers. When my voice came through the speakers, strong and calm, I almost didn't recognize myself. I looked straight into the camera and said, they said it was just money. But it was more than that. It was a promise, a future, a belief in me. They took that for a boat. The comments were overwhelming, some angry, some proud, some crying. A few said I was selfish, bitter, disrespectful, but most, they saw themselves. My parents used my scholarship refund to pay off credit cards. They gave my fund to my cousin and said he needed it more. You just gave me the courage to walk away. That's when I knew the boat wasn't just a boat. It was a symbol, a monument to every dream stolen and painted over with family excuses. 2 weeks later, I received a certified letter at my dorm from my dad's lawyer. It wasn't a lawsuit, it was a formal notice of family property reassignment. In simple terms, they wanted me to sign away any claims to our family's house, the same house I'd grown up in, where my childhood drawings were still taped to the garage wall, where my blood, tears, and years still lingered in every floorboard. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because they thought I still wanted it, like I needed permission to leave something I already let go of in my heart. I called the lawyer and said politely, "Tell them I don't need the house, they already sold what mattered." And then I blocked the number. That summer, I stayed in the city. I interned at a digital news platform that specialized in underrepresented voices. They gave me my own weekly column. I called it Unsilenced. My first piece. They bought a boat. I bought my voice. And people read it. They really read it. Not just clicked, not just liked. They shared it, quoted it, told their own stories underneath it. One reader wrote, "My mom always told me you talk too much. Now I'm applying to be a speech therapist. Thank you." I walked into that office every morning with purpose, coffee in one hand, laptop in the other. I wasn't just someone who'd been hurt anymore. I was a writer, a journalist, a voice, a reflection for every girl who thought she had to earn love by being quiet. Mid-July, I got an unexpected visitor, Aunt Karen. She showed up on a Sunday with a paper bag full of snacks and a tired smile. "Didn't want to text," she said. "Just wanted to check in." We sat on the steps outside my dorm. She didn't ask me to forgive anyone, didn't tell me to go home. She just said, "Your mother's unraveling. You know." I blinked. She's embarrassed, ashamed, but too stubborn to say it. I looked away. "I don't want her shame." "I know," Karen said. "But she doesn't know who she is without you needing her." I stayed silent, because I did know who I was without them, and I loved that version of me. Karen handed me an envelope. Inside was a photo. It was me, age 5, holding a book on the porch, grinning like I had the world in my hands. "I found it in your mom's drawer. Thought you should have it." I stared at the picture for a long time. That little girl didn't know yet how much she'd have to fight just to be heard. But now she had a microphone, and she wasn't giving it up. It was late August when the email came through. Subject line, "Request for interview. Your parents sighed." I stared at the message for a long time. It was from a local news affiliate back home. Apparently, they'd picked up the documentary and wanted to do a balanced follow-up. They said my parents had contacted them. "They feel they've been misrepresented," the producer wrote. "Would you be willing to respond?" I didn't even finish reading. Delete. A few days later, I got a DM from a girl I vaguely remembered from high school. "Hey, your mom's been saying you made everything up for attention. That there never was a college fund." That hit harder than I expected. Not because it was surprising, but because it was so desperate. My mom wasn't just denying my story. She was rewriting history altogether. I sat with that for a few hours. Then I pulled out my folder of receipts. Literally, bank statements, screenshots, photos of the registration slip for the boat, my NYU tuition payment confirmations, and finally, a scanned copy of the trust letter from when I was 13, the one Dad signed, stating the college account was dedicated solely to Kayla's post-secondary education. I took a deep breath and posted it all in one long, quiet Twitter thread. No hashtags, no emojis, no names, just proof. Let them read it and decide. Within 2 hours, the post had gone viral. Again, she kept receipts, the literal kind. "This girl is my Roman Empire." The way she brought paper to a gaslight fight. They really thought she'd forget, after stealing her future. And buried in the replies, a single comment from my cousin Danny. "I remember this fund. I remember when they bragged about it. I also remember when the boat showed up. Kayla didn't lie, that was it. I didn't need more." The next morning, my mother called. I let it ring. Then she texted, "So you're just going to ruin us publicly?" I stared at the message, heart racing. Then I typed back, "You did that when you stole from me and lied about it. I just stopped covering for you." No reply. Later that week, Aunt Karen called again. "She's crying now," she said. "She's saying she didn't realize how much it would hurt you." I bit back a laugh. She didn't realize? What did she think would happen? "I don't know," Karen said softly, "but I think she wants to talk. Really talk. No manipulation this time." I hesitated. "Just think about it," Karen said. "Closure doesn't mean forgiving, it just means finishing." So I agreed to a call. One call, no promises. I was in a quiet corner of the campus library when my phone rang. "Kayla?" My mom's voice cracked like old wood. I said nothing. "I didn't know you were hurting that bad." Still nothing. "I thought you'd understand we were doing our best." That did it. "My best would have been telling you the truth," I said. "Your best was hiding it and then calling me a liar." "I was scared," she whispered. I paused. "Of what?" "That if you left, you wouldn't come back." I sighed. "You were right." There was a long silence. Then, softly, "I miss you." "I don't miss who I was around you," I replied. "And that's the difference." Tears, sniffles. Then she said, the thing I never thought I'd hear, "I'm sorry." My throat tightened. It didn't undo anything, didn't give me back the years, or the money, or the trust, but it meant something. For the first time, she wasn't defending herself. She wasn't making excuses. She was just apologizing. I let her speak, and when the call ended, I didn't cry. I sat there, surrounded by the smell of books and coffee and quiet air, and I exhaled. Not relief, not forgiveness, just relief. That weekend, I went to the water, not the ocean, just a small pier in the city where the ferries passed. I watched boats glide by, their reflections shimmering in the current, and I thought about that boat. The one they loved more than my education, the one they put in my name, like it was just a trick. I smiled, because they thought that paper made me powerless, but I turned it into freedom. And now, I didn't need a boat. I had a future. I had me. Graduation came faster than I expected. 4 years of late nights, of bylines and interviews, of growing into someone who didn't need permission to be heard. And now, there I was, standing in a black cap and gown, holding a diploma with my name on it. Not my parents' legacy, not their plan, not their idea of who I should have been. Just Kayla James, BA in journalism, fully paid, on my own terms. Aunt Karen was in the crowd that day. So was Danny. No sign of my parents. And honestly, that was okay. Because I didn't walk across that stage, hoping for their applause. I walked for the girl who scrubbed teakwood with tears in her eyes. For the girl who used silence as a shield. For the woman who finally realized her voice was the loudest thing she owned. After the ceremony, a small boy ran up to me. He held a worn copy of the campus magazine that published my most viral essay. "They bought a boat. I bought my voice." "Are you the boat girl?" he asked. I laughed. "Yeah," I said, kneeling down. "I guess I am." "My sister wants to be a writer too," he said. She read this out loud to me. She said it made her feel strong. I blinked back tears. That was it. That was everything. A month later, I got my first full-time job offer, editorial assistant at a major online media company. Not the flashiest job, but mine. I accepted on the spot. No need to call home. No one to ask permission from. No lectures about practical careers. Just me, moving forward. One night, I was walking home when I passed a fancy yacht club. Boats lined up on the water like ornaments. White fiberglass, polished chrome, names painted in cursive across the backs. I stopped, not to admire them, but to remember. Because once upon a time, a boat stole my future. Now, it built it. At home, the stories died down. People moved on. My parents never went public again. They didn't apologize publicly either, but they stopped trying to rewrite the truth. Sometimes silence is the only surrender some people can offer. And I took that silence as the ending I needed. One summer afternoon, I got a letter, not a text, not an email, an actual letter, handwritten, shaky script. It was from my mom. Kayla, I don't know how to be proud of you without also feeling ashamed of what I did, but I am proud. I was wrong. I hope one day you'll believe I meant well, even when I clearly didn't do well. You didn't just prove us wrong, you became something we never had the courage to be, yourself. I folded the letter quietly. No tears, no hate, just peace, because I didn't need her approval anymore. But it felt good to know she finally understood. Now, I tell this story when I speak at colleges, when I meet young women wondering if they're selfish for standing up. When they ask me, "How did you do it?" I say, I stopped asking permission to be heard. I stopped shrinking to make others feel tall. I stopped letting guilt dress up as love. And when they ask if I ever regretted selling that boat, I smile, because that boat wasn't a loss. It was an exchange. They gave me a vessel to carry their lies. I turned it into wings. So no, I didn't just sell the boat. I bought back my voice, my education, my future. And I did it with a signature they never thought I'd know how to use. This was never just about money. It was about value. And now, they know mine, even if they can't afford